Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment of TEDXcellence, the series in which I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I just keep watching these things, thinking that maybe I'll learn something. Maybe. I don't know. But whatever I'm doing, I'm coming to you live from my Corona bunker on the moon with Dog Cat Fox, a Pepper Jack, and joining me once again from a place just about as desolate in the wonderful world of Canada, Blind Press.
I'm back.
Hello, Blind Press. How are you today?
Hello. I'm good. I have my coffee. I have my mind-altering substance. I am ready to go.
That is good. And my chat has frozen for some reason. There we go. That's nice. Boy, oh boy, that would be a poor start, because I remember that happened on a stream a while back, and I was like, I don't know what to do when I don't have chat along with me for these things. I feel alone. But I won't be alone, because I have Blind Press. And also, all of you, before the stream began, thank you, Point Curation. Hope everyone is having a nice day. Thank you, Point. And thank you, Shrouded Angel, for the waving lemon. And also, thank you, gayest person on YouTube. One, please, as GPY, as I say, buys their ticket. Thank you so much. But as well, all the rest of you, Willet Forge, hello. Asian Hippie, hello. Zach Osborne, hello. Esith, hello. Dark Alisle, hello. Irate Prostate, hello. Mr. Scott, J87, hello. Keeverdam, hello. Jordan Edwardson, hello. Gunnar Anderson, hello. And then the chat jumps, of course it does. That one servant of Satania, hello. Havoc Vladimirovich Stalinov, hello. Your boy Pat, hello. Laser Beam Barbecue, hello. Humble Clay, hello. Graph Spree, hello. Sean Uli, hello. Luke Skywalker 2, hello. Green Death, hello. Twisted Skipster, hello. Ms. Slim 1, hello. Mike R, hello. Tyler Lalonde, hello. Mike Savage, Blarg. Devil Fruit Zero, hello. Roger Reynolds, hello. Anna Clark, hello. Non-Vitae Rex, hello. Jordan 250, hello. Zombie Teddy, hello. Check Your Logic, hello. Mr. Jones, hello. Rolling Bear, hello. Spider-Man, hello. ARMUK, hello. Quinn the Cultist, hello. Functional, hello. As everyone's streaming in, so to speak. Red Chaos Tree, hello. All right, guys. So, what do we have on the docket for today? Well, unlike last time, and Pink Hollow the Driving Ape Man, hello. Sar Jim, hello. Becca Fairley, hello. I feel like I'm reading off the Mickey Mouse Club or something. It's like, Cubby, Annette. Why do I know that? Because Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
So, what do we have today? Well, unlike last time, neither Blind Press or I have witnessed the TEDx beforehand. But when I saw this one, given the title, I thought, hey, Blind Press, this might be up your alley. Let me know if it's worth watching. And she said something to the effect of, after 15 seconds, yeah, we need to talk about this. Like,
yeah, oh. I saw the first 10 seconds, and I was like, oh, really?
Now, the official title of this presentation is called Reimagining the Experience of Disability. Reimagining the experience of disability. And that's almost nearly to the same title as the last TEDx I did, which was Reimagining Justice.
Oh, my.
And so when somebody tells me that they want to reimagine something, it means that my current perspective on it is obviously flawed. Now, what's my perspective on disability? I don't know. It's person by person. I've known some very sweet people who just happen to have a disability. I've known some raging jerkwads who have a disability. It doesn't define anyone. So I kind of look at it like anything else about a person that is just, as the phrase that I use so often, non-determinative of their character. But I guess we'll find out what Rachel Bechtel, whoever she is, thinks about it. Let's see. Swan732, hello. Anybody else in the last minutes here? Advocatus Diaboli, hello. Cannibalistic Wizard, hello. All right, so guys, per usual, I haven't even started drinking yet. Eric Grunstadter, hello. per usual, I will start off with a couple of seconds worth of sound to make sure that you guys can hear it. Of course, now I have a co-pilot to let me know as well. And after that, we will begin. So here we go.
Today, I want to challenge what you think about disability.
Okay. Sound good?
I hear it fine.
All right. Today, I want to challenge what you think about disability. Oh, and she's got a screen behind her that's got the text of what she just said on it. So maybe the whole thing's subtitled. I don't know. Gulf City DCC 182, hello. And the one-ton Hammer, hello.
Hi, Hammer.
And with that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
And hi, Irate. I didn't say that before.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and now I officially begin the Pepper Jack. Let's dive in.
Before I begin, I must acknowledge that I'm an ally in the disability rights movement.
Oh, thank God. I was worried. I really was. I didn't know how to assess you until you told me. Also, nice stretch pants. I don't usually comment on what the people are wearing, but yeah, actually, this I can tell you right now. She's standing on the same elevated stage as a TEDx talk I previously did. So this must be at the exact same event. The one I did before was the lady who was, God, what was it? She was, she was telling us.
Do the patented interrupt scribe thing.
Oh, of course.
Wow.
Sorry, but
That was
you're not
meta.
supposed to drink alone.
Oh, yeah. You're not supposed to drink alone. Pincalo brought me booze.
Oh, okay. Is it good booze?
I haven't tried it yet. It's a wine-infused cider.
Interesting. But yeah,
And it is good.
This TEDx talk is different because it's more perilous for the speaker. She's actually standing on a raised red dot platform.
Oh, God.
So if she's not careful, she might fall off. But yeah, the previous speaker at the same event was talking about how she makes her living fighting white nationalism.
Oh.
So this, man, I would love to attend one of these TEDx events where you get this kind of smorgasbord of just insanity. Like, on the one hand, you have a fighter against white nationalism. And then our next act is reimagining disability.
With someone who has no disability.
Well, I don't know yet. Maybe she's going to tell us. I don't know. All right. So in the disability rights movement, she is an ally. Okay.
I do not have a disability, and so I can only speak to what I have learned as an ally from self-advocates.
Okay, well, you were right, Blind. She's not disabled, at least as far as she's telling us. But she's going to take the word of others. All right.
Yes.
All right, so she cannot speak to their lived experience.
Meaning disabled people.
Uh-huh.
Today, I will be speaking to allies like myself so that we can help to address and acknowledge the constructs that continue to oppress the disabled members of our communities.
Oh, my God.
Why would you need to speak to people who are already on your side? If they're already allies like yourself, unless you're saying that everyone who says they're an ally is inherently imperfect next to you.
And why do you have to come at this with the thesis that disabled people are oppressed?
Well, let's find out.
For the purposes of this presentation, I will be using identity-first language. So
What?
instead of saying person with a disability, you'll hear me say disabled person. As many self-advocates explain, that if disability is not negative, there's no need to separate it from the person themselves.
What the fuck does that mean?
I don't do this very often. I need to back up and listen to that one more time because I'm not quite sure I grokked what she was saying. Let's try that again.
Be using identity-first language.
Uh-huh.
So instead of saying person with a disability,
So instead of saying person with a disability,
you'll hear me say disabled person.
Okay, and now maybe it's just me, but if you're being specific about a particular demographic, you talk about, or at least it's reflexive to me, is disabled people. I don't usually say person with a disability. If it's relevant to a conversation, otherwise.
It goes both. I've seen a lot of advocates actually use the opposite of what she just said. I've seen advocates use actually a short acronym, PWD,
Okay.
instead of person or disabled person or
Yeah, I guess that makes more sense because, like I was saying before, it doesn't define the person as something that they happen to have.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Legit. But she did it completely. Yeah. You say like
She
that's
did.
it.
She completely reversed it.
Thank you, Piccolo, driving 8-man. I am the anti-ally. Yeah. Well, you interrupted me. Of course.
He really is the anti-ally.
Your anti-scribe ally.
Many self-advocates explain that if disability is not negative, there's no need to separate it from the person themselves.
No. Wait. No. It's not that disability is negative. It's that disability is not an inherent factor to a person. Now, when I say disabled person, I mean, in my heart of hearts, I'm not saying all they are is a disabled person. You know, I could say person with a disability if I wanted to add a couple extra syllables, but that's not my intention either. So I understand how one implies the other. Or
she's one of these people that would probably tell me to my face that saying blind person was mean.
All right. Well, maybe she will.
So first, we have to look at the beliefs and stereotypes that our society holds about disability.
Okay.
The stereotype content model created by Susan Fisk and demonstrated here posits that 2 factors determine stereotypes.
Okay, for those of you that may be listening to this or otherwise can't see the screen, she has a chart up, and it's kind of a quasi line graph kind of thing.
Okay.
So it's a stereo content model. All right, so on the upward y-axis, it says competence, and on the lower x-axis, it says warmth. And then in the middle of this, you have a 4-square grid, and the grid reads from left to right and then down to the bottom level: paternalistic prejudice, admiration, contemptuous prejudice, and envious prejudice.
Okay.
So the more competence versus the more warmth. So if it's less warmth and more competence, you're going paternalistic prejudice. If you're going more warmth and less competence, it's contemptuous prejudice. And if you're both highly competent and highly warmth towards the person, it's just admiration. And then if it's warmth without competence, it's envious prejudice.
My head hurts.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. Anyway, so that not the most helpful description of the chart, but that's the best.
No, that works, but it's just the terminology is
paternalistic. Okay, maybe she'll explain.
Demonstrated here posits that 2 factors determine stereotypes. The first, shown on the x-axis, is how warm, friendly, or nurturing a group is perceived to be.
Mm-hmm.
The second, shown on the y-axis, is how competent a group is perceived to be.
Okay, so it's about the perception of the observer, and then depending on their perception, that determines which box they fall into of their own perspective on people with a disability. Okay.
This model helps us to explain how we have developed stereotypes that provoke emotions ranging all the way from admiration to feelings of contempt or even envy.
Okay.
Within this model, disabled people are perceived to be very warm and friendly, but lacking competence.
Wait, we are?
Well,
we're considered to be warm and friendly people? I didn't know that.
So if person A has a disability, and people can see this disability in some fashion, they can perceive it, they automatically or generally speaking think that person is then friendly?
And stupid?
Yeah, friendly and, yeah, I guess so. Friendly and stupid?
Friendly and stupid.
Friendly and stupid. You heard it here first, folks. Society and culture thinks that people with a disability are both friendly but stupid.
This misperception leads to a paternalistic prejudice where we feel pity or even sympathy towards the group.
Wait, you feel pity towards friendly people?
I mean, there is an unavoidable, I think. I mean, it's sort of like the comparison of circumstance. If you know someone is blind, if you know someone has lost a limb or something, there is a certain level of reflexive human compassion / empathy. Now, if you want to qualify that as pity, I guess it depends on how the person expresses it.
Yeah.
But that's not inherently a bad thing unless you, I don't know, start undermining that person's agency as a result or something. But just having a feeling isn't inherently bad.
No. Like I had, as a quick example, I had a science teacher who outright, he pitied me. And he's like, I find it admirable that you can even get out of bed every day and come to school.
Yeah.
And I should have failed grade 9 science. I didn't do the work. I failed lots of tests. I should have failed. He refused to fail me. My mother was like, she needs to fail. He's like, no, I'm not going to fail her. She's blind.
Did you?
That's pity.
Now, maybe you've grown out of it, but at any point, did you ever take advantage of someone's pity for your own gain?
I don't know if I have done it consciously.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not gonna say that I haven't.
Sure.
Because I'm sure that I have, and that would be absolutely dishonest of me to be like, no, I've never done such a thing.
Yeah, and I'm not indicting you or anything. I mean,
No. But
everybody at one point in their lives has manipulated another person just because it was convenient. So yeah. All right. Let's see what else happened.
This prejudice contributes to phenomena such as the disability wage gap.
Okay. The disability wage gap. Is there a disability wage gap?
I would say yes.
Okay.
Because there are still a lot of employers that don't know what available technology there is to help a disabled person be productive. And they also don't know that there are, at least in the US and Canada, the companies can access like tax write-offs if they purchase accessibility technology, or have to, like, say somebody has a wheelchair and for some ridiculous reason the place isn't ADA compliant already. There are tax write-offs that a company can apply for to help them offset the cost and make it worthwhile to hiring a disabled person. So there are, like, and a lot of, like, there are some organizations that are specifically for employment of disabled people, more often in the States.
Yeah.
For example, the Lighthouse for the Blind in Texas. These are established by the NFB, and they tend to pay less. And they they do sort of get away with it because they've technically covered all their bases, right? They're employing disabled people, they're giving them hours, but when disabled people tend to complain about, say treatment or underpayment, most times they get told, hey, at least you have a job, right? Be grateful for it.
And there's likely also a segment that it's a situation where the person is either because of physical disability or even mental disability are simply incapable of holding down a job.
Yes.
And so that adds to if there's going to be a rift as well. So
yes, there are people who unfortunately have to be on Social Security disability or some such program.
Okay. All right. So but now I don't know I don't know what she's going to say next, but if she's going to imply that it's purely because of discrimination and not because of circumstance. Now, that's not to say that discrimination doesn't exist, obviously, but it's almost never one answer to those kind of disparities.
Disabled people are perceived to be less competent and therefore less employable and less worthy of earning even minimum wage.
No, it's not that they're deemed less worthy. It's that this is the crappy part about the free market. If you have an exploitable group of people that you can exploit, you'll exploit them. It doesn't matter whether they're fully functional or not. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you have the ability to get cheap labor, you'll get cheap labor. Like, that's disingenuous to me. I find, like, yes, there are a lot of perceptions of incompetence, which, you know, are being broken down. That this is the problem. A lot of these speakers do not rightly present that these barriers are being broken down hugely. They act as though we're still back 30 years ago fighting to establish the ADA. And that's just not, like, I'm not saying it's perfect.
No system is.
But it is not anywhere near as horrible as it was. And these people act as if there have been no steps forward. And I find that very disingenuous.
Yeah, that's a common theme, pretending as though the past is the present and everything in between that might speak to at least an evolution of a situation didn't actually happen.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Disabled employees make approximately 37% less, or 63 cents to the dollar, compared to their non-disabled counterparts.
Okay, and I have to bring in the same question that I would when they're talking about the gender wage gap. You say make, as in earn, as in are they working full time? What jobs are they working in, et cetera, et cetera?
Exactly. Most people with disabilities tend to hold part-time jobs, either because if they make too much money, they lose their disability benefits, which often cover things like their medical expenses.
Right. I mean, there's
almost an
incentive to not actually work full time for a lot of disabled people. Yeah.
So there's that, and then there's also some people physically can't work a full-time job because of their disability. So they work part-time.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that we're going into the realm of the God of the Gap theory of statistical analysis here, where she says, here's a disparity between these two demographics. Obviously discrimination.
Yeah.
There are no other factors. Anyway.
Many studies attribute this wage difference to employers' perceptions of lower productivity. However, this wage gap is maintained even when controlling for possible differences in productivity.
Well, why don't you control for possible differences in hours worked and benefits necessary and so on and so on? Because if you're just going to put it down to the employer's interpretation or prejudice or whatever else and ignore any other factors possible there, then you're not, I don't know what studies you're looking at, but those are some very horse-blinded studies.
Agreed.
The wage gap also increases with educational attainment. So disabled employees with a master's degree experience a greater wage gap than disabled employees with a high school diploma.
What?
Yes, because they tend to refuse to take because they are given to think that manufacturing jobs for disabled people are what's it called?
Beneath them?
Charity.
Yeah, okay.
Charity jobs. So this is a shitty way that disabled people treat each other. When they've attained, like if a disabled person has themselves achieved a high level of education and they feel that they should have a job based on their education, which like anyone who had a higher level of it, they feel for some reason that it is beneath them to take a job, say, doing some manufacturing work while they're looking for that better job.
Right. No, I know people who don't have any disabilities have the exact same mindset. It's like, I'm out of work, but I'm too good for the stuff that's available to me.
Exactly. But why am I not making money? God damn it.
Yeah, it's like I hate being unemployed. I don't have any money.
Then.
Yeah, I know. I've known plenty of people who, well, my dad's thing always was, when you don't have a job, your job is to find a job.
Yep.
Doesn't matter what, as long as you're putting something in the bank and putting food on the table, etc. You take what you can get. So
yeah.
Anyway.
This may be due to this inconsistency between our stereotype of disabled people as incompetent and their achievement of a high level of education.
Or it could be the results of personal choice. I mean, do you ever factor that in? It's always society pushing in on someone. It's not just
disabled,
like...
disabled, they can't make choices.
I guess not.
These are the detrimental impacts that can result from our paternalistic prejudice.
Why is it always paternal? Why can't it be like maternal? As in, I see someone, the broken dove kind of situation, right? A dove with a broken wing. I don't. It's not paternal. It's a sort of caregiver sort of mentality that goes in and says, I need to support this person. I need to alleviate them of any other stressors because they're obviously injured or as disabled in some way. Why does it have to be paternal specifically?
Because this is in a negative connotation. So, man.
Yes. Man
bad.
As we know from Fern Gully.
Yes.
As we know from Bambi, the biggest threat is man.
Yes. Specifically with penises.
Often base the worth of a group on their productivity. And so this misperception of low competence and therefore low productivity harms disabled people. Okay,
first off, and I know I make this nitpick often, it's not a group, it's a demographic. There's a distinction between a group and a demographic, because if you're talking about a group, you're talking about like the NAACP, or the Friends of Firefighters or something. You're talking about a demographic. You can't generalize nearly as readily as you can with a demographic as you could with a group. Now, a group has a mission. A demographic just has something in common.
Yes.
That's it.
This paternalistic prejudice also leads to a highly pathologized view of disability called the medical model of disability.
Okay.
Within the medical model, there is one standard for how the human body should look and engage with the environment, and any deviation from that standard is wrong.
Okay, so for those of you not looking at a screen right now, there is a diagram. I'm not going to say a chart, but so there's a big circle in the middle that says medical model, and underneath that in italics says person is the problem. And then surrounding this blue circle with that text inside is various phrases, and so I'll read them off. Is housebound, needs help and caregivers, is sick looking for a cure, can't walk, can't get up steps and walk, confined to a wheelchair. So the medical model is person is the problem because they are unable to do X, Y, Z, therefore they are functionally the...
This is what Molly was talking about last week with the medical model of disability.
But see, the medical model... Well, see, when I think of medical model of... Like if somebody just said out of the blue, hey, what is the medical model of disability? I'd say, well, medicine is to help treat something or to alleviate pain or malfunction or something. Yeah. So if someone can't see, you address that as best as you can to either mitigate the effects of that or to conceivably, if depending on the circumstances, try to cure that thing.
Yeah.
Because having a crutch while your leg is broken, that's a medical model because you're trying to compensate for the current affliction. But now they're saying the person is the problem. It's like, no. The problem is the problem if it's a problem.
Well, in this crap about, saying that the person is the problem, do these people not realize that if doctors don't attempt to cure the problem, sometimes people die?
Well,
not just deal with the problem they have. Like, I'm going to use myself as an example. Had the doctors not tried to, had not given me steroids to kill the cytomegalovirus that I had and tried to save my vision, being blind is the least of the problems I could have had.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could have died.
Yeah, and I mean,
for these people to say this shit is, you can't just say, oh no, don't fix the disability. Sometimes even attempting to fix the disability and failing means you save a life.
And the other thing too is that if you're addressing, I mean, again, maybe I'm misunderstanding the phrase medical model, but when you say medicine, you're attempting to help the person. You're attempting to address the problem. You're not saying the person is the problem. You're saying that the problem needs to be addressed as best as possible to help the person. So I'm not quite sure. I mean, it should be called the asshole model then. If you think someone who, let's say, someone's missing a leg for whatever reason, accident, birth defect, whatever. Okay, if you think that because they're missing a leg, the person, full stop, is a problem, that's not the medical model. That's the asshole model.
Yeah.
So again, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe she'll clarify. I always say maybe and almost never happens.
While in some situations, medicine can improve quality of life, this internalization of the medical model has led the disability community to continue to experience abuses, such as involuntary sterilizations and neglect within our healthcare system.
Okay, when's the last time you've heard of a compos mentis disabled person being sterilized? Like, I'm not saying it never used to happen.
Right.
But, and notice I said compos mentis for a specific reason.
Yeah.
Like, these idiots that sit here and say that women or men who are quite literally deemed compos mentis shouldn't be sterilized for their own protection because of the possibility of abuse in group homes and shit like that. Are you serious?
Yeah, but whenever I hear about sterilization on the basis of disability of whatever kind, my brain immediately goes to the Nazis, right? Because that is like the grand example of we must purify, etc., through sterilization.
Yeah.
Again, there are probably some very, in this day and age, in industrialized countries, America, etc., there are probably some very fringe circumstances where that takes place for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But as a matter of reflex or tradition or some kind of hygiene, purity or something.
No, that's not a thing.
No, not in any industrialized nation.
No.
I don't know what goes on in the farthest reaches, etc. But I don't know what she's referencing here. And again, as far as I know, this is taking place in if our speaker from the other TEDx that did this same event is correct, this is taking place in Montana. So we're talking about America here.
Yeah, no.
Unless she says otherwise, she's referencing America.
Our Child Protective Services still automatically rate disabled parents as higher risk than their non-disabled counterparts.
Now, this is true. there are a lot of blind parents that I'm in several Facebook groups with blind parents, and they either, when they go into the hospital, they get automatically called. Like, I had them called on me with our firstborn. Yeah, they did it, and like, they did it twice. They and the second time, another blind person called on me, because she was upset with me.
So is that just because of a presumption that you're unable to provide reasonable care to a child? Okay.
When I was in the hospital giving birth to my oldest, the nurses, basically, they wouldn't speak to me. They spoke to Pincalo and they spoke to my mom. At one point, they asked my mom, "How is she going to change his diaper?" And my mom's like, how do you change a diaper?
Right.
How many ways are there to change a diaper?
Yeah, the laws of physics don't suddenly change because this person is blind.
The lactation consultant, after my son not even being a day old, was like, when you go home and can't breastfeed him, you're gonna switch to formula, right? Because he wasn't latching properly, and she didn't want to bother to teach me. She was just like, go to formula. And at that one point, they told me flat out, you can't leave the hospital without a feeding plan, which is not something they do with sighted people. Like, my little sister had a trouble breastfeeding for a week, and they were like, oh yeah, you guys are fine, she'll get it, with my mom.
Okay.
And
that's bullshit.
It is. It's a perception thing. And so we filed a complaint with the hospital. And, we stood up for I stood up for myself. Because
but you
that's
can't
what
do
you
that.
do.
I mean, you're blind. You can't stand up for yourself. You need everybody else to help you.
Oh, I know, right? I'm supposed to just cry and be a victim, and like, and they called up the social worker when they told me you can't go home without a feeding plan, and I started to cry. They called up the social worker because they thought I had postpartum depression, because they told me I couldn't go home.
Okay. So, and being okay. And I know this is going to sound like I'm being the asshole here, but trying to be devil's advocate. Is it, do you think, at least in part, a overreaching sense of covering their own liability?
It's that, and the evening before I went home, I called the nurses out. I was like, you guys need to be speaking to me. You can't just come into the room and start doing shit to my kid, because that's what they were doing. They were checking on him, but they weren't saying, oh, hi, we're just here to look at little Alex and check. So I'd be like, hi, who are you and what are you doing? So finally I was like, you guys need to be speaking to me, not my husband or my mother, unless they speak to, like if it's regarding me, talk to me, right?
Sure.
And finally they were like, you know what, we think that, you're right. It's because we wouldn't know what to do if we were blind and looking after a kid. And I'm like, okay, I get that.
Yeah.
Ask me. Don't just.
That just seems so bizarre to me. I mean, I'm a layman, obviously, but I would think even the most novice medical professional would have had, and maybe this is my ignorance, would have had some guidance or some kind of training,
they don't.
or just common sense.
Pincalo asked every nurse that came in to see me, he's like, have you ever had a blind person on the maternity? Like, have you dealt with a blind person as a maternity? And they're like, no.
Right. Okay.
It was really, it was weird.
Okay. Well, that's, bewilders me, but there you go, guys. All right.
We still have laws, such as the Fair Labor Standards Act, that support the institution of sheltered workshops, programs that segregate disabled employees from the general population and legitimize paying them sub-minimum wage.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that one.
I'm not, because that sounds like an American act that I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, no, like I said, if I remember correctly, she's in Montana. I don't know if the speaker herself is from Montana, but she's talking presumably about American laws, and I'm completely ignorant of the minutia of laws regulating disability and such for employment. So
right,
except for the fact that you are, not allowed to discriminate, save for the obvious, like, this person can't walk and the job requires, walking or something like that.
Yeah, like if a blind person went to the army and was like, I'd like to enlist, please.
Mm-hmm. I want to be a sniper.
There would be absolutely no reason, like, recourse for them to sue, for the military to be like, I'm sorry, you can't be a blind sniper.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I mean, you could. It'd be a really cool action movie. There was Blind Justice with Rutger Hauer, which was pretty freaking cool. Blind Justice, where Rutger Hauer goes around and does karate and jujitsu and stuff with his cane.
True.
Or Daredevil, because he has superpowers. All right.
Just as we talk about people being ethnocentric, where we view any culture that differs from our own as wrong, the medical model is ability-centric, as it presents any form of disability as wrong.
No, it doesn't.
Well, disability as, different, obviously, or off the norm or something, but not as wrong. Like incorrect or something. And any culture that's different than ours is wrong. Okay. Yeah, I'm speaking anecdotally.
Yeah.
Depending on the specific, you'd have to name the culture. Like, is there a culture that thinks it's okay to cut off baby heads and then drink soup out of them? Like, well, I think that would be a wrong culture, but somebody with a disability, I said before, my sister, she's blind in one eye. She has a disability. She's got hypothyroidism. That's a disability.
Yeah.
But she's not wrong. She just has a disability and she compensates for it and she gets on with her life, but she's not inherently like a wrong person. She is flawed. Her body may be flawed. Her makeup, her chemistry may be flawed. Sure. But that doesn't reflect on her as a person.
Yeah. Like, I'm blind, and because of that, I have circadian rhythm issues, which means I have insomnia, which also means I don't get the proper amount of vitamin D, which also means I have depression, which I'm medicated for and probably will have to be forever.
Look, we just have to leave you out in the sun with a heroin in you.
Wrong.
That's it. Yeah. No, we leave you out in the sun. We dope you up with heroin. You'll fall asleep and get plenty of vitamin D. You'll be fine.
The disabled person is the problem.
No.
Because they can't use the stairs, are unsafe in society, and are drains on the rest of us.
What the How? Okay, what decade are you living in, lady?
I keep thinking of Ebenezer Scrooge. Ebenezer Scrooge looking at you like, well, you're obviously you're a weight on the surplus benefit of society or something. Like, I'm sure there are people out there that there are people out there who see anyone who is different from them as somehow lesser, disabled, discriminate, etc. Sure, there are people out there that like that. It's not a cultural norm, though.
No, to say that is the majority way of thinking, especially after how far society, especially Western society, has come.
Yeah.
Like, that is crap. That is absolute.
As a disability rights advocate, the medical model was not consistent with my own experiences.
I don't think the medical model is consistent with reality.
What experiences? You started off saying you're not disabled.
Both my dad and brother experienced progressive hearing loss.
Okay.
While my hearing is objectively better than theirs, nothing in my experience with them has shown me that our respective hearing affects our value as human beings.
Then why are you accusing society and culture elsewise? Why is how is it that your experience where you're not devaluing your brother and your father because of their hearing loss, then says that obviously everybody else does. Are you victimizing your own father and brother on their behalf or something?
That's what it sounds like. It really does.
I mean, now, okay, and I'll, again, benefit of the doubt, maybe she witnessed or knew of some kind of discrimination or otherwise that befell her brother and her father, and she expanded that to represent everyone in society. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. But then also that would be an assumption that that's not necessarily true. Thank you again, Pakal, the Driving Ape Man. Associative victimhood. Yeah, by extension, because my father and my brother had the disability, and maybe she witnessed things, therefore I take that onto myself and then project that out into the rest of the world as this is the standard of how you treat people. I mean, again, if you're going to indict everybody on the actions of a few, and again, I'm only guessing, unless she gets to an anecdote, I don't know, but.
To the contrary, their hearing loss has caused them to develop skills and strengths that I never will. While I am limited in my ability to understand a conversation to what I am able to hear, they both can lip read.
Can they play Mortal Kombat? Because if they can't, I think they're disabled still.
This gives them more flexibility in social situations than I will ever know.
Okay.
We engage with the world differently, but our engagements and contributions are of equal value.
Nobody says otherwise.
Well, I mean, that's all depending on the circumstances. Because if I'm at a meeting talking about growing oranges and somebody says, hey, I raised a platypus last week, there's no value there to the conversation. Just trying to tell you. Just saying.
But I mean, nobody thinks that Stevie Wonder's contribution in music was any less because he was blind. Nobody thinks Beethoven's contribution in music was any less because he was deaf.
Well, they may elevate it on the basis of how amazing is it that that person is blank or whatever.
Yeah.
So if people didn't know that Beethoven was deaf, do you think they'd still assess him with the quality otherwise? If Stevie Wonder wasn't blind, would he be as famous?
I would hope, and this is speaking as someone who loves music. I would hope so, because their music is great.
Oh yeah, I think like if I didn't, like when I was growing up, I didn't know Stevie Wonder was blind. I thought he was just like one of those, he was just cool because he wore sunglasses.
And then
I know the difference.
But then you look at guitar players like Jeff Healey, who everywhere he goes, I'm blind and I play guitar. I'm blind. Well, he's passed away, but I'm blind and I play, like he everywhere. It was blind guitar player Jeff, and not to knock Jeff Healey fans, but I didn't like his music. I really didn't. It wasn't that great,
I guess it depends on the people who either like lean on that as a selling point, or it's just they perform and it just happenstance that they are whatever.
Like, how many people know Andreas Bocelli is blind?
Probably a lot of people, honestly. But yeah, if somebody played Bocelli for me, or if somebody played Stevie Wonder for me, and I didn't know they were blind or deaf or whatever, it would still be good music. It would still be really well done, and that's really the equalizing factor of it. Is like, it is irrelevant that Stevie Wonder's blind. It's irrelevant that Mozart was deaf, and etc. Like the work product, the merit of their work stands on its own, regardless. So, yeah.
Whereas my experience showed me that disability brings important and valuable perspectives, kept encountering this tension between my own experience and the medical model.
The medical model, which I'm still very skeptical, is actually a common accepted practice of thought, as described at least. Again, medical model or asshole model?
Yeah.
Because if you're assuming the medical model as an asshole model, unjustifiably, then yeah, I guess everybody's an asshole or something. Like, I'm going to put a cast on that broken arm. Well, obviously you're devaluing that person by applying the medical model. What? No. Anyway.
As a child, I didn't know that disability could be perceived negatively until my family was kicked out of restaurants because of our service dog.
And you didn't stand up for your family chose to let that happen?
I mean, I don't recall when the ADA went into effect, but if somebody walks in with like a dog that is obviously, I mean, I can see some restaurants doing that, honestly. I can see some, depending on what era we're talking. We're talking about like the 80s or something. I can see that happening, sure.
Back in the 80s and stuff, like depending on how old she is.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like the newer service dog, like seeing eye dogs have been established for a very long time.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
However, and I got into this argument the other day with somebody because they were trying to tell me that seeing eye dogs cost thousands of dollars to the client, which isn't true. And they were citing other service dogs as like cerebral palsy dogs and stuff like that as examples. And I said, well, the reason you have to pay that much for those dogs is because they haven't been established as long. Mm-hmm. And therefore the subsidy is not there yet.
Right.
It's the same concept with a dog. She cited her father and brother had hearing loss, so the dog was probably for like a trained as a deaf assistant.
Mm-hmm.
Those dogs are not as established, and I'm not saying it's right for the restaurant to kick them out.
Right.
I'm just saying they haven't been as established and therefore aren't as well known. Like.
The other thing I have to ask is, like I said, the timing of it. I mean, if this had occurred, and again, I don't know when the ADA took effect. I honestly don't in America.
I think
it was the 90s. Yeah, late 80s, early 90s.
Mid to late 80s, I believe.
Yeah, something like that. So if it was long enough ago and you had restaurants or whatever that didn't give a shit, okay, I can see it having happened, sure. But again, are we going to dwell on how things were back then? Are we not going to at least acknowledge that times, perceptions, laws have changed? Because even if let's say hearing assistant dogs aren't as well known as someone who says a seeing eye dog, if somebody's in a restaurant, somebody comes up and says, "I'm sorry, no pets are allowed in here," and you say, "This is a service dog. I have a hearing disability."
Yeah.
I mean, sure, there are jerkwads out there. But in the majority, do you think someone is going to just reflexively kick you out on the basis of that and just say you're lying or something? I don't know. So, okay.
And until my brother was hit by a teacher with a binder for not hearing something in class.
What? Did that teacher go to jail for assault? I hope.
See, this is what pisses me off about stories like this, because they always say what happened to them, but they never finish the story. Like, did their father and mother go straight to the principal and go, "Why in the fuck did one of your employees hit my son?"
Yeah, as though saying that story somehow makes it like this is the acceptable norm among society. Like, no, it isn't. What are you talking about?
Like I was excluded from gym class for 2 years and then marked as non-participatory.
Oh, that's bullshit.
And my mother was like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
You cannot do that. You either include her or you don't, but you do not mark her as having and they're like, well, she's got a bad attitude when she's doing things with her EA during gym class. And my mom's like, no shit. You've told her she can't do things with her peers. What the hell do you expect?
Right.
Like, why do these people never tell the story of their parents going to bat for them? Did their parents go to bat for them?
Yeah, it's like say, as we talked before, I can believe that people are assholes.
Oh yeah,
no doubt. But whenever they tell these stories, it's like this is the pinnacle of the worst possible thing that can happen, Now let's talk about this other thing. Like, no, wait. I have some questions. I got some questions. It's like, can I believe that happened to your brother? Sure. In the worst annals of human behavior, a teacher gets so frustrated with your brother that he can't hear something, or they think that they're faking or something, that they break down and hit him with a notebook. All right, fine. And then what happened to that teacher? Yeah. What did your brother then do? What did the parents do? What did the administration do? Was there any sign immediately after that incident that this was an acceptable form of behavior towards, a child, let alone one with a hearing disability, period? Yeah. Just, come on. Now tell me you're going to follow up. Please, lady, tell me that you're going to be the exception to the rule and actually go on to tell us how that was an outlier.
My experience of how disability affected my family was not negative.
Except for your brother getting hit in the face with a binder? Did you not... if you don't think that's a negative experience, even as an observer, a family member, okay, what kind of sadist are you again?
No shit.
But my experience of how the outside world treated disability was negative.
Wait, your experience? What about your father?
I don't know how you separate those two, honestly, especially when it comes to a family member. It's like if something happens to my sister in a way, maybe it didn't happen directly to me. And sure, maybe my observation of that thing can be negative, but I would feel it in my gut. I would take it on myself if my sister somehow got knocked in the face with a binder because somebody took her disability as a personal frustration. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Then one day, as I was browsing the internet, trying to reconcile this conflict.
Oh, well, that's a smart idea. The internet's the best place to go to reconcile personal conflict.
I'm in personal conflict. Google, help me.
Yeah. Twitter, tell me, how can I address this internal conflict?
I stumbled across a sentence written in a paper by Lindy Zaretsky.
Uh-huh.
It is worth recognizing that an expansion of the clinical scientific research base to reflect a wider appreciation of disability and impairment might appreciate these phenomena to be socially constructed rather than individualized or pathologized.
Okay, just for clarification, because this reads like absolute pseudo-academia.
Yeah.
Quote, it is worth recognizing that an expansion of the clinical scientific research base to reflect a wider appreciation of disability and impairment might appreciate these phenomena as socially constructed rather than individualized or pathologized. So basically, if I'm reading this correctly, and God knows I'm probably not, you want to expand specific anecdotal circumstance into a social assumption.
That's what it sounds like to me.
So you run into the teacher who's going to smack a kid with a binder because he can't hear. You're going to take the restaurateur who decides to kick somebody out because they have a service animal rather than a specific seeing eye dog or something, and then say, it is worth taking those individual incidents and saying that applies to all people rather than just to someone for their own individual prejudices or personal biases. That's called projection. Yeah. You're academizing projection. You're trying to justify projection, if I'm reading this correctly.
Give me 30 seconds. I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, while you're gone, I will go to chat real quickly and see what people are saying in the chat. Nothing for you here. I've never met someone who deliberately treated people differently because of a disability, aside from accommodating them, of course. I've seen, if you want to talk about like kids who have absolutely no filter and no sense of proportion, I've seen people treat other people much differently because of a disability. But as far as like grown adults or people who have actually had members of their family or otherwise, not so much. Not so much. Or at the very least, there is an extension of compassion and sympathy, even if they can't sort of, address the situation necessarily maturely, I guess. I don't know how else to put it without getting into specifics. Asian hippie, my brother is deaf. He traveled around the world and has not encountered any prejudice. Quite the opposite. He was given all the help he wanted.
Sorry about that.
It's fine. Oh, good for your brother. Talking to Asian hippie. Advocatus diaboli, pathologized implies social construct. Can you have one without the other? Well, I mean, using the same word in its own definition is something I've come across more than a few times in these things. But yeah, just my reading of that word salad.
No shit.
I mean, I don't know how else to interpret that. So, and again, I'm happy to be corrected, but that's how I read that. So let's see if our speaker clarifies.
This was my first exposure to an alternative understanding of disability.
No, this sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, this sounds like a retroactive academic justification for your own paranoia in projecting a doom mentality on society because of a few admittedly lousy incidents that happened to your family members. This goes back to the same thing that I was talking about with that lady on the social justice in adventure education. I did a video a couple weeks ago where it was a girl, it was a college senior. Her final project was talking about social justice and adventure education. And she talked about how she was exposed to social justice ideology at 13. And then she came to this college that really helped to refine and showed her how what she already believed was actually true because it was in an academic setting and it was in
That's how education works.
Well, education is all about confirmation bias, except you're putting it into a higher education, intellectual, academized framework, which then helps to re-justify and validate your preconceived notions about reality. So when this lady, and again, I'm not a mind reader and I'm not a psychologist, but I do own a couch. When this lady read this line, it spoke to her because she already believed in what it was telling her.
Yeah.
Now she can point to this and say, aha, see, this academic lady said the thing that I already thought. And so now it's confirmed to me that I'm right in thinking the way that I am about reality.
Yep.
Maybe I'm stretching. I mean, I'm not Mr. Fantastic, but I can stretch it.
Called the social model of disability.
Oh, the medical model of disability, now the social model, and both are bad. Are there any good models of disability?
The social model posits that disadvantages caused by disabilities within our society are the result of how our society has been socially constructed.
Okay.
Hold on. Okay, so again, another diagram. We have a circle in the middle that says social model. Environment is the problem. How about the problem is the problem? Why are we putting the blame on everything but the problem? And then around this circle are several, again, different phrases. So the first one says discrimination and segregation, segregated schooling, only stairs with no ramp or lift. Wait, okay. If someone's in a wheelchair and there's a staircase in front of them and there's no ramp, the environment is the problem. Well, it's the problem for that person, yes. They can't get up the stairs. But that says nothing about the problem of their disability. That just says that the environment, such as it is adding to the difficulty. I mean, now, and then that's not necessarily a invalid complaint, right?
Right.
But, okay, inaccessible buildings, inaccessible public transport, and multiple barriers to employment. Okay, that... The social model, the environment is the problem. Well, if you have a problem like that and it's addressable, both for convenience and for equality of opportunity, let's say, then yes, those are things that should be addressed. And we have both here and in Canada legislated as best as with within reasonable human endeavor to address those things, or put disincentives in place for those that don't.
Yeah.
So, okay, maybe I'm missing something, because I don't disagree that, yes, if the environment is structured in such a way that makes it more difficult for someone with a disability to function, and it's something that can be reasonably addressed, then, especially by law or just by common compassion, it should be.
Yeah.
All right.
The experience of disability is therefore not the result of objective reality, but the result of human creation and interaction.
No,
What?
the person's still in a wheelchair, even if there's no ramp.
Oh, Pincalo has something to add.
Pincalo.
And?
It's also on the disabled person to say something
Yeah.
about it. We failed to do that on 3 separate occasions.
Yes.
And that was on us.
Sure.
So it wasn't on society or anything that Microsoft, or not Microsoft, the company that was contracted under Microsoft didn't hire blind because she's blind. It was on us for not going after them to get the consequences for that.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. There is a give and take. There is an agency aspect to this, but to say that, like, oh, the environment's the problem, it's like, at the same time, like I say, if building X doesn't have a ramp, and it should, that doesn't somehow make the person in the wheelchair not bound to a wheelchair.
No.
I mean, you can address the environment. You can't necessarily address the problem, and the problem. Okay. I've obviously had too much pepper jack, because I'm losing my brain here. Okay. Again, if she is critiquing situations where there are addressable circumstances in the environment to mitigate or assist or to provide opportunities for those who have disabilities within reason, then sure, the environment could be a problem. It could be an obstacle.
Yeah.
But the environment says nothing about the actual disability.
No.
I mean, it might make it less convenient to have that disability, sure. Okay, maybe I'm misunderstanding.
No, you're not wrong. Like, if I run into a touchscreen debit card machine,
right.
that's inconvenient as fuck.
Yeah.
But having a debit card machine that has buttons, while making it easier for me to use by myself, does not make my eyes work.
Right. Okay.
Within this model, the person is not the problem. The environment is.
Okay. And I don't necessarily disagree with that notion. Okay. Because, yeah, the person is... Yeah, not looking at a person who happens to have a disability as inherently a problem is good. So if okay, maybe this is a point at which I agree with her. I don't know.
Because if our society was constructed to accommodate all people, stairs would not exist.
Okay, now you lost me. First off, society cannot accommodate all people in all things. It just is never going to happen. As much as I want, there is not a naked redhead waiting for me in my living room right now. Okay. No matter how hard I cross my fingers and I wish upon a star, it's just not going to happen as a matter of course. And I know I'm being facetious, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
No one is ever going to have all accommodations for them at all times, especially depending on their proclivities. I mean, let's think about Karen for a moment, shall we? But if stairs would not exist, all entrances would be by ramp or lift.
Nobody would ever open a door again. They would all be automatic.
I guess. So we have to find the lowest common denominator for all people in all things, total and absolute physical, temporal equality. Okay, environmental socialism isn't a thing that's going to happen. I hate to tell you this, because everybody's going to find something to complain about, even when they don't have any reason to.
Everything would be captioned. Knowledge of ASL would be commonplace, and stigma and prejudice against disability would not exist.
Because no one would have a choice otherwise? I mean, if you're going to try to say that everyone must do these things, et cetera, et cetera.
Does she not know how animals work? Like,
I don't know.
Human beings, no matter how you'd like to say, we are animals. And animals have inherent, hey, this person is different from me.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make them evil, horrible people.
No.
It just makes them observant.
Yeah, it makes them people, makes them inherently flawed creatures. But the other thing, too, is whenever somebody starts talking about a utopian ideal, I always stop and say, yeah, but utopian for whom? For you? Well, great. But what if I have no reason to learn ASL?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I'm trying to think for a moment. Aside from my grandmother, who's like 97 and losing her hearing, I can't say that I've encountered that many deaf people in my life. Not because of some intentional thing, but just because, the luck of the draw, I suppose.
Yeah.
And people that can do that, I mean, hell, anybody who knows another language fluently, regardless of what it is, always impresses me because I'm a dunderhead. I'm trying to learn Scottish Gaelic right now from Tailed Feature, and I can't grasp that stuff to save my life for the most part, except for phrase here and there. Anyway, like I say, regardless of the subject matter, if somebody starts talking about, in a perfect world, everyone would do this, and everyone would do that, and everyone would do that. Like, yeah, well, that's never going to happen.
Nope.
So complaining about it, I mean, if you want to encourage people, if you want to offer classes and so on and give people the option or the choice to do so, great. No problem with there at all. And if suddenly my sister loses her hearing tomorrow, or I lose my hearing tomorrow, and circumstances force me to have to do something I might otherwise not feel a need to do, that's just life. But yeah, utopias, you immediately get me go like, I could talk about utopia all day, and I wouldn't accomplish anything.
So to compare the two models, within the social model of disability, the environment is the problem. Within the medical model of disability, the person is the problem.
And in both models, you're ignoring the problem as the problem. And it might be a problem that cannot be resolved. If you have no eyeballs, short of cybernetic eyeballs being invented or something, you're kind of out of luck. So until the Geordie LaForge model comes out. But otherwise, you can try to mitigate, address, assist, whatever the problem is. But the person isn't the problem. I'll agree with that. The environment could be an obstacle, but it is not inherently the problem.
No.
And it's all circumstantial and context driven there too. So can you do as much as you can realistically to adjust people's thinking, policies, the environment, etc., to make it as accessible as possible to people with disabilities? And also, we're still talking about disabilities as though they're just physical disabilities.
Yeah.
There are plenty of people out there who have disabilities that are ephemeral at best.
Yeah.
But, okay. Anyway.
The medical model often serves as the root of ableism, a set of beliefs or practices that devalue or discriminate against people with physical, intellectual, or psychiatric disabilities, and often rest on the assumption that disabled people need to be fixed.
We're back to Molly a little bit there, as though like fixed. It's like, well, if you can cure someone of their disability, if you can restore the ability to walk to someone who can't, you're not saying the person is flawed. You're saying their body is flawed, and if it can be addressed, alleviated, mitigated in some way to improve their quality of life, how is that a bad thing? How is that some kind of condescension towards the person?
Like, if I was told, hey, blind press, there is an injection that I can give you right now that will regulate your brain chemistry, and you will no longer have to take antidepressants every day.
Mm-hmm.
And you will you know, obviously you'll be, you know, accountable for your emotions and everything, but you'll be able to, you know, like cognitively be like, tell yourself to calm the fuck down, or, you know, not be as, you know, get yourself out of this horrible hole.
No,
mentally.
What you don't understand, Blind, is that your anxiety to depression, it's a badge of honor.
Oh yes, of
you
course.
Can't take that off. You would be devaluing everybody else out there that has to deal with that. You'd be saying that somehow they're flawed because you want to get rid of your depression. How dare you, ma'am? How dare you?
How very dare I? Yes.
Why do I take an antidepressant every morning? Why do I do that? Why don't I just continue to go forth in my life, living every day in a constant mental hell of anxiety and fear and paranoia over everything, and lock myself down emotionally, and to the rest of the world appear to be some kind of emotionalist robot, while inside my own head, I'm going crazy every second just trying to hold it together? How dare I try to alleviate that? Obviously, I'm saying that is detrimental to people, that because I'm depressed, I need to be fixed, that I'm broken. You know what? I am. But except I'm not. My brain is. My chemistry is. There's the me trying to cope with the uncontrollable forces inside of my brain. And I could be fighting that fight every minute, every day for the rest of my life and having absolutely no fun. Or I can take, and I'm very lucky that I happen to be in this position, I can take one pill every morning and the static is reduced down to a crawl in the background, and I can actually tell the difference between, wow, is this worth worrying about or isn't it? I couldn't do that for the better part of my 20s and 30s. I couldn't tell the difference between the proportionality of an email I sent with a typo and someone just stabbed me in the foot.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't, my body, my brain chemistry would not distinguish between those two things. But how dare I? How dare I even contemplate admitting that I need help? Because that would be a disservice or something. I'm sorry. I'm going off a bit here.
One illustration of the social model of disability is seen in Daniel Kish.
Okay.
Mr. Kish is blind and says that it's impressions about blindness that are far more threatening to blind people than blindness itself.
Okay, your reaction to that?
Impressions are not threatening.
Yeah, so
impressions are thoughts.
It's impressions about blindness that are far more threatening to blind people than the blindness itself. Okay, so again, being generous, let's say there is some pervasive stereotype about blind people that causes everyone to assume that you have no feet. I'm being silly, but I'm just saying, like, what's the most extreme? Okay, so so they come up to you and say, like, oh, I mean, can I get you some special shoes or something? Now, if somebody comes up to you and they make an assumption that you are thus helpless, weak, whatever it is, because you're blind, is that a threat to you? I mean, I suppose, like in the case where you're in the maternity ward, if somebody assumes that you're inherently, just completely off in some other dimension or something because you can't see, and they function or they make decisions for you without your knowledge or consent, that I guess could be what she's talking about.
I would say that is a risk.
Mm-hmm.
Whether and the risk, your reaction to the risk is the threat. If you face, like for me, for example, when Family and Children's Services was called, and they called me and said, we need to come and do a home study, because I asked in a private lactation appointment, because somebody had asked about drinking and breastfeeding and the safety of that. And I asked in a private consultation what the safety of marijuana consumption was. And all of a sudden I get a call. We need to come make sure you're not smoking around the baby.
Oh,
and I'm like, excuse you. And then they wanted to come with it when nobody was home except me and the baby. And I said, absolutely not. You can come when my husband and my mother are home, or you can close my file. And it's so the reaction. So there's a lot of people that are disabled that will be too scared to do that. And I understand why they'll be scared, because somebody's trying to take their kid away.
Yeah, you have a stranger in your house, and maybe for whatever reason you can't. I mean, in your case, some stranger comes to your house, you can't see what they're doing, what they might be, whatever.
Yeah.
Without some supervision, because I mean, the operative word in supervision is vision. If there's somebody there that you can't keep tabs on in your own home, why would you accept that? Yeah.
But lucky for me, my father and his ex-wife were foster parents. So I knew how our Family and Children's Services branch worked, and they tried to tell me they couldn't do evening home visits. And I said, that's bullshit. I know you can.
Yeah.
You just lied to me. But not every disabled person knows that.
Okay, right? So there could be instances where an impression about blindness are more threatening to blind people than the blindness itself. It could be the case.
Could be.
Okay.
But I would posit that it is the disabled person's handling of the impression that solidifies whether it's a threat or not.
Yeah, that's the one thing that keeps being left out in a lot of these examples so far, is the agency of the person in question.
Yeah.
Like the environment is the problem. People seeing the disabled person as the problem. Well, what about the person themselves? What role do they play in dealing with the environment, or dealing with prejudice or something else, or misunderstanding?
Yeah.
There is a certain level of personal responsibility here. Again, all depends on the circumstances and what kind of disability we're talking about. Some people are in such a way that they really don't have that ability to do that for themselves, and that they need special help. But as a general rule about blindness, right, it's just that they're blind. They're not existing on a different plane of existence and can't interact with us or something.
No.
They're not ghosts. They just happen to be able not to see. Yeah, woo! It's like a blind phantasm. Woo! All right.
He has learned to use echolocation to replace his sight and fully engage with his environment.
Okay, I've always wondered, is that actually something people can do? Because when I think echolocation, I think bats, obviously. And I've seen stories where I remember when I was a kid, I saw some 2020 or whatever Dateline kind of story with some kid who was driving down the street on his bicycle, and he kept making clicking noises with his tongue.
Daniel Kish is the guy who made that more mainstream. He actually does teach blind kids to do that.
Okay.
It is more of it's more of learning how to use your hearing in a different way. I myself have done it not as a full clicking thing, but if I don't have my cane, for example, at my family cottage, we don't have plumbing, so we have to use the outhouse. If I run out there without my cane, it's just a straight line, but sometimes I'll veer a little bit and I'll be like, okay, wait, this isn't the path. And I'll just snap my finger and hear, okay, now I know where I am, because the sound is bounced off of the building.
Okay.
So it is a thing. I don't do it full, the Daniel doesn't use a cane. he fully just walks around and clicks.
Right.
That's not something I do because to me there's like I'm not throwing shade at him, but there's like I guess like a social thing. Like if you're walking around and going, you know, it's a bit off-putting.
Sure.
And I understand that that's his way of seeing. So, you know, that's how he chooses to do it. Me, I'm able to just listen for voices and hear like how they bounce off of things. You know, where the sound of my cane bouncing off of things.
Sure.
So I sort of do what he does, just without the click.
Okay. Because I always thought there was maybe some utility to it, but I just, it was hard for me to admit. Now, of course, different people have different abilities. Like, what was it, Mozart or whoever who could like, or Beethoven could like hear or feel the music.
Yeah, he took all of the legs off of his pianos, and so he would play them on the floor.
Right.
So
yeah.
so feel the vibration of his playing.
Right. So some people just might be more either physiologically or otherwise predisposed to be able to take advantage of things than other people.
Yeah.
And so so there's some utility. And of course, you know, if you're being honest as a regular person, I can tell just sort of sitting still if I'm sitting in a very open space or an enclosed space, just because even when there's no sound going on, just by, you know, you sort of tell you're in a warehouse versus a classroom kind of thing.
Yeah.
So there's some utility to echolocation or mild stuff like that. But I wasn't aware, like, I wasn't sure, like, how much it is a utility to people who are blind. I guess it's to each their own kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
He is so skilled that he's able to bike through New York City.
Maybe that was him.
However, he explains that when he has attempted to teach blind children how to use this skill, it has been nearly impossible if they have seeing parents.
So the seeing parents are the problem?
Oh, did you hear that?
Yeah, I know, I heard that. Bullshit. All right.
No,
okay.
but the seeing, no, so, okay, this pisses me off. It's not that we learn differently from sighted parents.
Sure.
Like,
well, the only good parents of a blind child take ice cream scoops and take out their own eyes. That is the only way that they'll learn how to operate like bats. Thank you. This is Kyle. Have a great stream, guys. I have to do my Dark Souls stream, so I'll finish this later. Okay, thanks, Kyle. Okay, we're about 7. I got about 5 minutes left in this thing, and we're only 7 minutes, just about 8 minutes in after all this. She has said so much stuff. Some I agree with fundamentally, and some it's just like, what?
It is necessary for these children to, for example, approach the edge of the road in order to learn where it is.
Because they need to have their feet feel what that means? What?
Yes.
What having blind parent? Okay, again, maybe I'm missing something. What would having blind parents change about that dynamic?
So there are a lot of sighted parents that, especially if their kids lose their sight later on, they project their sadness that their child is blind onto their child, and then they tend to coddle their child.
Okay.
And they tend to do more for their child than they would for a sighted child. I went to a camp for the blind with a girl who was, I think her vision teachers basically told her parents that she needed to go because everything she did was I can't.
Okay.
I can't do this. I can't do this. the counselors would try and get her to do any sort of activity. I can't. And she was like 15 years old. So there are sighted parents that when they realize that their child is blind or their child is diagnosed blind, that they shut down and they get very upset and they project it onto their kids.
And kids are just sponges when it comes to their parents.
Yeah.
Okay.
The seeing parents almost always stop their child's training at this point.
Okay, no.
However,
because they got to the edge of the street? I'm going to back up.
Bullshit.
I'm going to back up because maybe I'm missing something here. Okay.
Necessary for these children to, for example, approach the edge of the road in order to learn where it is. The seeing parents almost always stop their child's training at this point.
Why?
Okay,
However,
no.
Why?
No. Okay. Even in I call bullshit because even when you're learning how to use a cane or a seeing eye dog, you need to learn where the edge of the road is.
I don't get why the
sighted parents. No, like there's got to be some other reason.
Yeah.
There's got to be, because even in regular orientation and mobility where you're not learning how to echolocate, you are taught how to feel where the road or sidewalk becomes the road.
Right. I mean, your feet kind of just do that a little bit. If
you feel it with your feet. You feel it with your cane. You cannot. Any good guide dog school will not give you a dog if your cane skills are shit.
Right.
So, I mean, there has to be another reason these sighted parents...
Yeah.
Like...
If they're paranoid, if they're so paranoid about their child's safety that they're like, okay, no, I'm not going to have my kid take themselves out into the street because blah, 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 blah. Okay, that is a problem with the parents for sure, but is it really that common?
Also,
and is it only limited to sighted parents, though?
I would also like to put this theory forward. A sighted parent who wants their child to learn to walk and travel without a cane is not easily deterred because it is most reflexive for a blind, like you think blind person, you think cane, guide dog.
Sure.
You do not think.
Right.
Okay, so how is he teaching these children? How is he with them? How does he treat them?
Yeah.
Like, what is behind this withdrawal of training?
Yeah.
Always stop their child's training at this point.
Why?
However, if blindness was not pathologized, and if these students weren't restricted by expectations or social constructs, how would that change their experience of disability?
I don't know, because you're assuming a lot of people that parents are paranoid and coddling because they're sighted, that everybody everywhere sees, in this example, blind people as inherently incapable of taking care of themselves altogether, and so on. The environment is the problem. People think the people are the problem. I think I might be losing my train of thought here. Okay, all right, only got a couple minutes left on this.
Mr. Kish is not alone in his ability to echolocate.
Sure.
Many blind people have varying levels of this skill. Neuroscientific studies actually suggest that expert echolocators have been able to repurpose their visual cortices for echolocation.
Same with reading Braille.
Okay. Yeah,
when
sure.
You read Braille, your visual cortex is active.
Right, because that's the brain sort of reflexively trying to turn on the lights, so to speak, for what you're trying to do.
Itself.
Yeah, moving through the world, etc. Yeah.
Perhaps this is biological support for the social model of disability.
Okay.
Or
it's just how the brain reconfigures itself to adapt to the situation. In the absence of culture, Are you saying the brain would not do the same thing?
Actually, this disproves her medical model theory.
Oh, yeah, a little bit.
If the brain is proof that if medical people have studied the brains of blind people to see that their visual cortices are activated when echolocating or reading braille, wouldn't that prove that they didn't think that blind people or disabled people in the medical field were the problem?
No, obviously the people are the problem. I mean, the brain is part of the person. Duh.
I guess so.
As echolocation and expert echolocators appears to be no less functional than sight.
Can they look at a painting and tell me what color the tree is? Sorry, I know. I'm being a nitpicker, being a jerk.
Pink Hollow just said, "Find me a job that pays you to be an echolocator."
Well, I was going to ask earlier. It's like, I mean, obviously, probably not. But is there any reason why a blind person couldn't be a sonar operator on a submarine?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I assume you'd have to be able to see to navigate your way, no pun intended, through the submarine. But I mean, that was my first thought. It's like, well, what jobs, what careers out there are entirely based around sound or hearing? I mean, audio engineer, maybe. I can see that.
See, that's the thing. This whole, and that's the other thing I should have brought up when she was talking about employment.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of disabled people that have small businesses.
Yeah.
Especially now with the advent of the internet.
Oh, sure.
Like, there are, it's like you just said, for the blind people, there are lots of audio engineers, musicians. There are, just so many different, a lot of people do stuff from home. Like this whole quarantine thing is going to show employers that you can hire people who can't see or can't, they can work from home, they can work digitally.
Right.
Like, there are good things that can come out of this. Like,
yeah, my boss has commented a couple of times. He said, we're doing so relatively on level with what we were doing before all this, with everybody working at home. He's actually considering, like, maybe we should just have a virtual office and maintain a small little place for meetings or something. Yeah. And I'm kind of like, well, I mean, the next month or two will be the test of that. And if so, you can imagine how much cost cutting you do if you take away some giant office you're paying for a lease on, etc.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I mean, it's possible as long as you can keep the connection going. But sure, there's, I mean, I think this was before, I was trying to think of, like, what jobs would not require sight at all. I mean, you could have researchers as long as they have Braille in front of them or otherwise. Mm-hmm. You could have sound engineers, composers. I can't even think of all the things that could possibly be done just in the absence of sight and or having translators, anything that has been compensated for as much as possible, etc. Yeah. So anyway,
appears to be no less functional than sight.
Yeah. Okay.
I posit that this is yet another way in which disability has caused people to engage with the world in a manner that is only different and not negative.
Nobody's disagreeing with you on that.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, you're the only one saying that everybody or the society at large inherently sees someone with a disability as themselves the problem.
Like, I think she's honestly stuck like 100 years ago somewhere.
Or she's just running up against, like, it's one of those cognitive dissonance things where it's like, here's what I've been told is bad, and here's what people actually do, but I can't hold those two notions in my head at once, so it must be that everybody else is the problem.
Yeah.
And I can see the two sides of the parted sea. No one else can, or something. I don't know.
Sonara Taylor, a painter, writer, wheelchair user, and activist, explains that she is perfectly capable of using her body to complete a task, but sometimes refrains from doing so. For example, using her mouth to pick up a coffee cup. This is not a normalized movement and often causes people discomfort.
Well, fuck them.
Okay, wait. So yeah, exactly. So you choose to give a fuck what people think about you, and that's their problem?
Well, I mean, if the example is true, then this particular lady doesn't care. So, okay, all right. So some people are uncomfortable seeing someone using their mouth to pick up a cup of coffee. Okay, and then?
In this context, Sonara is perfectly capable of using her body functionally, but does not due to the stigma associated with it.
That's her
choice.
If she chooses to do that, that's on her. That's not society making her.
Do you think, like, seriously, like, do you think it's not kind of embarrassing at a fancy restaurant when I have to say, like, hey, Pincalo, can you help me cut up this steak because I'm having trouble?
Mm-hmm.
I'm 30 years old. I know how to cut meat, but sometimes it's a little bit difficult because I can't see what I'm doing, and then my steak falls off my plate.
Right.
But I'm 30 years old and I have to ask somebody to cut my fucking steak for me. But do you know what? I don't care because I want to eat my steak.
Right. And so this lady is like, if she's perfectly capable of functioning, then she may do so.
Yeah.
If it makes somebody at the table across the way look kind of like, whoa, then, well, guess whose problem that is? It's the person looking, or it's the person accepting it as their own. And if she does that of her own free will, well, good for her, I guess. She's limiting herself of her own choice. Yeah. She's limiting herself beyond the scope of her own disability. How weird is that? I mean, she can function. It's just different than everybody else. She chooses not to because she doesn't want to make anybody else uncomfortable. Like, okay, well, your consideration for everyone else's feelings is doing you a disservice.
Like, it's almost the same thing as a blind person who doesn't want to use their cane because they don't want to stand out.
Right.
And it's like, I get it if you're newly blind. It sucks because it reminds you I'm blind.
Right.
Right. But at some point, sometimes people just don't want to guide you.
Yeah.
Bring your cane.
I would hope, and God forbid something, like strikes me down or whatever, or causes me an issue. But at some point, I'm just going to have to be pragmatic and say, I need to do this to function. I need to do this to move through my day and not feel like I'm living in a complete prison all the time.
Yeah.
The pragmatism's got to come in at some point, and it just like the lesson that you hear when you're a kid. Don't think about what other people think. Don't worry about it. Just do what you need to do to get by. And take pride in the fact. I mean, if she can like eat a full meal and function all by using her mouth, etc., and just looks weird to the rest of us, hey, that'd be impressive as hell to me. Yeah. I don't know, but maybe that's just me. That's not society.
Yeah.
The medical model comes with the implication that if your body conforms to the standards set forth by it, you are self-sufficient.
Society does not set the standard. The standard just it's the norm. I hate to tell you this. Society doesn't make that happen. That's just biology. A normally functioning human being has 4 arms, or 4 limbs. Good God, Pepper Jack. Okay, let me try that one again. Now let me tell you all again about a normally functioning human body. As my brain and my mouth do not seem to want to connect right now. 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, a functioning mouth, etc., etc., etc. That is not society. Society has not set the standard of what is a normal functioning person. That's just a normal functioning person.
Yeah.
I'm getting a whole bunch of 4 arms comments in the chat now. Okay, great. Yes, we're all Spider-Men. We are all Spider-Men. Anyway, so my entire point was lost in my screw up. So I'm going to move on.
And not in need of accommodations. However, we all need infrastructure.
Yeah.
We all need tools and need to be able to use our bodies functionally.
Yeah, and how is that not falling into the category of fixing, as you were saying before, was a bad thing. It's not fixing. It's mitigating or assisting or compensating for. Unless you're like a broken leg or something, then you're fixing it. Is a broken leg a temporary disability? Is it bad to fix it? You just let it grow in awkward or something, crooked?
Let that thing heal all crooked and pointy.
Yeah, anything you do otherwise to fix that broken leg is an insult.
There's this idea that, for example, stairs are the baseline, and to need something other than stairs is to be lesser. However, stairs, just like ramps, represent innovation created to fill a need.
If you need stairs, you're lesser. Or if you need ramps, you're lesser than.
Okay.
So all those moms with strollers,
right?
They're totally lesser than.
Yeah, I remember when I need to get my grocery cart up to the door, and I use a ramp. Oh, I'm a lesser human being because I don't want to lift the grocery cart over the curb. Oh.
Differences that stairs fail to recognize.
Stairs fail to well, God, how many times do stairs recognize anything? Okay, I'm going to back up. I think I misheard something. Let's back up a little bit just to make sure I didn't screw this up.
Just like ramps represent innovation created to fill a need.
Uh-huh.
The difference is that stairs fail to recognize the diversity of needs that exist.
Stairs are inanimate objects.
As Pincalo just said, how many times have stairs failed to recognize monkey?
I was about to say, it's like I would love for monkey stairs to recognize that he's there and then just elevate him without him having to walk up and down. Now smart stairs, hey, Apple's probably thinking about it. Alexa, turn my staircase into a ramp. Oh, sorry for those of you that have that product that I just activated.
We all need the assistance of each other and of innovation, but these solutions may look different for different people.
Uh-huh.
If every book in the library was written using Braille and all of my professors lectured using ASL, I would be limited as a student.
Yes.
Because this reality would also impose one standard for human beings to meet.
And thankfully, at least in westernized countries with laws, etc., I mean, there's still the norm is still prevalent. It is true, but there is accommodations made for everybody at this point.
Does she realize that you can't even go into a regular bookstore and get a Braille book?
Yeah, how common is that?
What kind of straw man was that?
I don't know. If every book in the library was Braille, I'd have a tough time. Yeah, but then if every book in the library was Braille, I'm assuming you're living on a planet with mostly blind people. So you would be the outlier, and they'd have to make special accommodation for, I hate to tell you this, if you're outside of the majority, there's always going to have to be some special considerations made. Especially when it comes to functioning within the world.
Hate that.
It sucks. I can't even imagine. I mean, just watching my sister in certain situations. Yeah, it sucks, but you just have to pick yourself up and move on. Otherwise, you're just going to lay down and do nothing. I don't know what else to tell you. And then let me get that to that.
And it's a standard that I haven't learned to meet.
Uh-huh.
This reality illustrates the same problem as the medical model, that it fails to recognize the diverse ways in which people exist in this world.
Because of stairs that don't talk? Okay.
So my question for you is, how does the experience of disability change if we as allies and self-advocates address the constructs that continue to limit disabled people?
What? Okay, well, if we're assuming your version of reality where there's only two options, either the person is the problem or the environment is the problem, and we just ignore the problem, if that's how you see allyship or advocacy, then I guess you're lousy advocates and allies. I don't know what to say. I mean, the one argument she's made so far that I fairly well agree with this. Like, if there's an environmental situation that can be addressed to accommodate as many different kinds of people with as many kind of disabilities or abilities as possible, and you can do that, you should do that. It's not going to be perfect for everyone because you cannot please all the people all the time. But on the flip side of, society thinks that the person with a disability themselves is the problem. Like, I don't believe that is true. I don't believe that society today, as it functions now, the laws that we have, the perspectives that have been laid out there through our laws and our media and everything else, I don't think that reigns true as common as she is saying, is suggesting. But maybe I live in a bubble. I don't know.
If we acknowledge the importance of diverse perspectives by shedding the ability-centric view of the medical model,
which, again, I don't necessarily believe is actually real, because it sounds like the worst possible aspects of human behavior being accepted as common practice.
Does disability remain negative?
I don't know. Blind Press, is your disability negative? Because that's the core question.
Sometimes, but it's not like negative.
Yeah, it's not a reflection of you as a person. Because that seems to be where she's coming from, is like, does disability remain negative as an all-encompassing factor to a person's value? No, it is not. It is not. Is it a negative insofar as, like, again, depending on the disability? I mean, it's obviously a hindrance in some fashion, or else we wouldn't call it a disability.
Yeah.
As compared to the standard, which again is not set by society so much as biology. Anyway.
Or does disability instead allow us to appreciate the diversity of humanity?
Disability, hair color, eye color, height, personality, likes, dislikes. Everybody's different.
Yeah.
I mean, some people think that being redheaded is a disability because they have no soul. So they say. I tend not to believe that because I'm sexually inclined towards redheads. I mean, I'm going to stop there.
So as you go back to your lives and your jobs, I challenge you to think about how your institutions would change if they were constructed to accommodate diversity.
They are. By law, they are. Individual people can make lousy decisions or decisions that cannot be noticeable because they are thoughts. It is true. However, by law, and again, if you see someone breaking the law, you tell someone. You don't just curl into a ball and say, "Oh, the world's against me."
Yeah.
Can I imagine Yes, I can, because just about every public institution I can think of adheres to those laws. And if they don't, they get a giant lawsuit.
Yes.
How do your hiring decisions change if they're based off a candidate's resume and not stereotypes?
Wait. Are you talking about merit-based hiring?
That doesn't happen.
How do our laws change if we know that disabled people do valuable work in accessible education and workforce settings?
Oh, I don't know. Let's look at the ADA. Let's see. How do our laws change? Well, I don't know. Let's look at what happened the day before the ADA and the day after. Brain blown. Like, what? Are you really talking to people living in the modern day right here? This was filmed in 2020. Yes, it was. Okay. So how do they? Well, we have some active examples. I thankfully, at least as far as a mature adult, do not remember a time before the ADA because I wasn't, cognizant of those things at that point. But I'm sure if I went to ask my mother, or my father, what were things like before this and after, they could tell you. You could probably look up there's probably a documentary about the ADA.
Oh yeah, probably.
Same thing for like Canadian law and so on.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Can we imagine it? Yes, I can imagine it. You're right. I can. Can we?
How does the demographic of Helena or of Carroll College change if we become accessible because we know that the experience of disability is socially constructed and we appreciate the diversity that disability brings.
Okay, so are you saying that Montana, Helena specifically, and Carroll College, where this is taking place, don't accommodate or imagine accessibility for people with disabilities?
So you're okay, does she not know that every accredited college in university and in the States and Canada has an accessibility department?
Yeah, and are required by federal law. Okay, and then, but it's a social construct.
Social psychologist Gordon Allport suggests that contact with people outside of your group who engage with the world differently challenges your prejudice against them.
What?
Really?
What?
I'm shocked.
What? Are you serious? Oh my God. Well, that guy's brilliant. That psychologist, boy, oh boy, man. If he hadn't thought of that himself, do you think anyone would have discovered that?
No, absolutely not.
You know, do you think? Gosh, when I have to try to talk to Tailed Feature and get past that accent, could I have imagined trying to open my worldview? Come on. Okay, now you're insulting our collective intelligence. Unless you think intelligence is a disability.
And so if our communities and institutions allow for that contact, how does that change our prejudice?
I don't know. Why don't you look out a window?
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh my God, it's over.
Come on.
Salad is finished. Thank God.
Come on. You end with that pablum, that freaking planet. Really, lady? I mean, there were a couple of points in there. It's like, okay, I can kind of get on board with what you're saying or whatever else, but the most of it was just like, let's assume everybody acts at absolutely the worst they possibly could towards someone who is different from them in a physical or disability sense, and therefore we're gonna base our entire perspective on this talk on that assumption, and then move on to say, how can we address this problem that is totally a problem everywhere because of society? If she was making this speech in like the 1940s or something,
yeah,
you know, or hell, even the 60s or the 70s, yeah, you might have been all in. There might have been a heck of a lot more there that made sense otherwise. But you just have to ignore everything that has occurred in the last 30 years, let's say. Well,
that's why I kept saying, what decade is she stuck in? Like,
yeah.
I don't get it. Like,
are things perfect? No. Are they better than they were in the time before the ADA and elsewise? I would probably argue yes, because people have a whole lot of incentive to do those things. And it's called like federal law.
Yeah.
And fines and jail time, depending on what the situation is. So A, she's ignoring just basic evolution of our society in the last generation, let's say. She's also seemingly discounting the agency of the individuals with the disabilities to either advocate for themselves or to just have to adapt and get on with life in spite of whatever it is that is sitting in front of them. So that, at least that's my takeaway. I defer the floor to Blind Press.
I'm pretty much in agreement with you. She glosses over any agency that a disabled person would have. She glosses over every step forward that has happened in disabled rights, as well as kind of taking a shot at basic civil rights and saying that it hasn't, or that there haven't been giant leaps and bounds of improvement. And I find that very disingenuous, and I find a lot of speakers like this very, very disingenuous with that.
Now, like so many other speakers on TEDx, and most of them, except for those that are like using TEDx as a personal sales pitch platform, I don't believe that she is ill-meaning.
No.
I don't believe that she's out to harm or to intentionally belittle or depower people as a result of this. She's probably speaking from her heart as far as her heart understands things. But like so many people, she comes into the situation with a predisposition about how reality works, points to academia or pseudo-academia to then re-justify her own perspective, and then challenges everybody else to come around to how perfect she is, because obviously the rest of us are inherently flawed. Like maybe we have a disability, and being able to see how the world works for her. So, okay. Like I say, I don't know if it's as sort of self-serving as the Molly Burke one was.
Yeah.
But it's still it's still sort of the soft bigotry of low expectations kind of thing interceding in there, where it's like, I'm just going to ignore the actual people with disabilities, and their problems and or their solutions are all the responsibility of everyone else, the environment, society, etc. Society has to swoop in and take care of.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, like, blind press needs to have her steak cut occasionally, right? It's just, there are some things that are unavoidable, and that, the rest of us need to do to try to, as best as possible, accommodate those who have problems that they have no control over.
Yeah.
In order to, as much as is possible, level the playing field so that everybody can at least be as independent as possible. And does that sometimes seem like charity? Does it sometimes come across perhaps as condescending or something, or assuming the inability of someone? It may be so, but I tell you what, 9.9 times out of 10, it's from someone just trying to be humanly compassionate and not be condescending and not look down on somebody, but also not know, like, how much help does this person want?
Yeah.
Is helping them an insult? I can't tell you how many times I've either encountered a situation myself or been around people who have like hesitated in doing something for someone because they didn't want to insult their sense of agency, not because they thought they were flawed or something, but because, you can understand, it's like, if I had to move through the world like that, would I want everybody sort of like tripping over themselves to help me? Wouldn't that like sort of devalue my ability as an individual? It's well-intentioned half the time. It's not somebody necessarily being bad. And if you can't give someone, I mean, again, I don't know how grouchy a person I would be if I suddenly lost my sight or my ability to walk. But I would at least hope that I would give people the benefit of the doubt that they're not out to insult me every time that they say or do something that might be of a help or an accommodation.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Anyway, we've gone on 2 hours now, which is far beyond the usual, but that's fine because of the subject matter. Anything else you wanted to add before we wrap up, Blind Chris?
Not much. I thank you again for having me.
Sure.
I've got about half an hour before I have to go live on my channel.
That was the other reason why I wanted to wrap up quick, because I know you've got other things to do.
But yes, I really enjoy doing these with you, and this was a good one, because she did have some good points, but then she kind of ruined it with everything else.
And guys, speaking of which, if you go over to Blind Press's channel, links in the description, as well as your Twitter, both on the screen and in the description, in about half an hour, Blind Press, along with who else?
It'll be Irate Prostate, One Ton Hammer, and Skeptalk. We are talking about the villains of Star Trek, and I've picked Commander Michael Eddington from the Deep Space Nine series. So
yeah. And beyond that, so beyond just being a ridiculous expert on Star Trek in general, amongst other things, she has her own show. She plays Mortal Kombat and Onward and Onward. So go check out her channel. Go listen in on the Star Trek villains discussion. I'm sure it's going to be great. Everyone, usually I'd go for chat comments right now, but we have gone way past time and she's got to go. So guys, thank you so much for joining us today. I really do appreciate it. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone is so well behaved. And everyone who donated, as always, thank you so much for your generosity. I really do appreciate it. I will go towards more Jack Daniels and Dr. Pepper because God knows I need it. Again, go check out Blind Press's channel. Subscribe to her on Twitter, or follow her on Twitter. Subscribe to her channel. That's how that works. Yeah, I guess. Thank you again, Blind, for joining me for this one.
Thanks for having me.
I'll keep a watch out for any other such subjects or talks that come up that deal with this subject that you're familiar with the matter on.
Cool.
For all different purposes. Everyone else, if you want more of me, and I don't know why you would, but if you do, I'll be on Ranting Monkeys channel tonight, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, for Lords of the Night, where we will discuss the news of the day amongst a million other things, and probably tell a bunch of dirty jokes along the way. And so everyone, have a good rest of your day. Please be safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon. And I'll talk to you later. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.